The Miami Dolphins, after being 1-7, have won 7 straight games to claw their way back after everyone wrote them off. They are now in control of the 7th seed in the AFC, and the main reason for this recent winning streak is their defense. When they had the record of 1-7 in the first 8 weeks, their defense allowed an average of 407 yards a game, which is by far worse than any team in the NFL currently. And it's not even close. They also were allowing 29 points per game. But since then, with a 7-0 record since week 9, they have allowed only 256 yards per game. That is over 150 yards per game difference, and only 11 points per game in that span. If they had started out that way, they would be by far the best defense in the NFL, and it wouldn't be close. The perfect example of this is when they destroyed the Saints, even with a backup quarterback. It is still impressive that they sacked him 8 times, had 2 picks, and only allowed 160 yards. So how did a team that was completely written out just a few weeks ago make such a huge surge to the playoffs, which they now have control of? And not only that, how did they lead the entire NFL in sacks with 45? So what makes this defense so good? Let's figure this out. And I can just about tell you why the defense has been so extremely good, but I have no idea why it started out so rough. The reason they have been so good is it starts with the secondary. Xavier Howard, we all know, a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro who had 10 interceptions a year ago, and Byron Jones, one of the highest paid corners and extremely versatile and well paid. They might as well be the best cornerback tandem in the league. They have plenty of depth like Nick Needham and veteran cornerback Justin Coleman, who is a stud nickel corner. Their safeties, Javon Holland, who is a rookie and has been super solid, which is an understatement. He has 2.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 9 passes defended. And Brandon Jones, who has been super great this year, not having crazy eye-popping stats except for in the sack category, as he has 5 sacks. The reason the secondary, which has been super solid, is so important is the Dolphins run tons of blitzes that are extremely complicated, and the only reason it works so well is because of the secondary. It is so good that they can confidently leave one-on-ones, which has been ridiculously effective. And the reason you can't just run on them is because they have some of the best interior D linemen in the NFL at run stuffing. Raekwon Davis is 6'7" and 330 pounds, as well as Wilkinson is 310 pounds. And those two completely clog up the middle, making them hard to run on. And since they're frequently blitzing, it leaves no time for the wide receivers to get open against their top-notch corners. So basically, with all the complicated blitzing dialed up by Brian Flores, combined with great cover corners and safeties, it causes tons of mayhem and confusion for the quarterback, which is why Ian Book in his first game starting struggled so much. So now that we understand why they're so good, why were they in such a huge slump the first 8 games of the year? And I really can't figure it out. No significant players missed time, but there is one major thing that changed between the losing streak and their winning streak, and that is the strength of their schedule. Now obviously, they're still NFL teams, and their defense was super elite in 2020, so there's plenty for me to go off of that it's still elite now. But the teams that they beat when they went 7-0, they beat the Texans, Ravens, Jets, Panthers, Giants, and Jets again, and then the Saints is a bad enough crew to inflate the numbers on their defense, but their last 2 games are really going to test them because the Titans and Patriots are top-notch AFC teams. So if they can play similar defense against those 2 teams, they are going to be dangerous in the playoffs. But the thing that concerns me is if you compare those teams to the teams that they lost to in the beginning of the season. They lost to the Bills, giving up 35 points on defense. They lost to the Raiders, giving up 31 points. Then versus the Colts, giving up 27. And then versus the Buccaneers, giving up 45. Then versus the Jaguars, giving up 23. Then versus the Falcons, giving up 30. And then again versus the Bills, giving up 26. So if you compare the beginning of the season next to the end of the season, the losing streak versus the winning streak, it's pretty substantially different. The teams are substantially easier on the winning streak, so they could just be pretenders. But we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks. Let me know what you guys think. Are the Dolphins legit? And I'll catch you guys in the next upload.